Rafael Leonidas Trujillo Molina, often regarded as one of the most infamous dictators of the 20th century, ruled the Dominican Republic with an iron fist for over 3 decades. His reign, beginning in 1930 and lasting until his assassination in 1961, was characterized by extreme repression, personal cultism, and economic modernization, leaving a complex and controversial legacy that continues to shape Dominican politics and society. Trujillo's rule is often studied as a prime example of authoritarian governance in the Americas, illustrating the interplay between personal power, state control, and social transformation. Rise to power. Trujillo was born in 1891 into a relatively humble family in the northern city of San Cristobal. Early in his life, he experienced poverty and social marginalization, which arguably influenced his later obsession with personal authority and control. He began his career in the military, joining the Dominican National Guard, a U.S. trained force established during the American occupation of the Dominican Republic, 1916 to 1924. Demonstrating intelligence, discipline, and ruthlessness, Trujillo quickly rose through the ranks. By the late 1920s, he had positioned himself as the head of the National Guard, a crucial stepping stone to political power, as the military was the main instrument through which political authority was exercised. Trujillo took advantage of a politically unstable period following the departure of U.S. forces and a series of weak civilian governments. In 1930, through a combination of military influence, political manipulation, and outright intimidation, he orchestrated a coup against President Horacio Vázquez, establishing himself as the de facto ruler. Shortly thereafter, he officially assumed the presidency, marking the beginning of one of the most authoritarian regimes in Latin American history. Consolidation of power. Once in power, Trujillo moved swiftly to consolidate his authority. He relied on a combination of fear, patronage, and propaganda to maintain control. Political opposition was ruthlessly suppressed, opponents were jailed, tortured, or executed. The regime employed a pervasive network of informants, ensuring that dissent was quickly identified and neutralized. This atmosphere of terror was complemented by Trujillo's manipulation of the legal system and government institutions, which were transformed into instruments of personal power rather than mechanisms of governance. A defining feature of Trujillo's rule was his extensive personality cult. He promoted an image of himself as the benefactor of the nation, and ensured that his likeness adorned public buildings, statues, and even currency. Schools, streets, and institutions were renamed in his honor, and public rituals glorifying his leadership were a regular feature of Dominican life. This cult of personality was not merely symbolic, it served as a psychological tool to legitimize his authority and to instill fear, loyalty, and obedience in the populace. Economic and social policies. Despite his brutality, Trujillo's rule was marked by significant economic modernization. He invested heavily in infrastructure, including roads, hospitals, and schools, while also promoting industrial development and agricultural expansion. His administration encouraged foreign investment, particularly in sugar production, which became the backbone of the Dominican economy. Trujillo himself amassed enormous personal wealth, largely through control of the sugar industry and other key economic sectors, blurring the line between state and personal property. Socially, Trujillo sought to promote a sense of Dominican nationalism, often emphasizing racial and cultural identity. He pursued policies aimed at Hispanizing the population and reducing the influence of Haitian migrants, culminating in the infamous 1937 Parsley Massacre, in which thousands of Haitian laborers and Dominican residents of Haitian descent were killed. This atrocity highlighted the extreme lengths to which Trujillo would go to consolidate power and impose his vision of national identity, cementing his reputation as a brutal dictator. International relations. Trujillo's foreign policy was pragmatic, balancing the need for international legitimacy with his domestic authoritarianism. While maintaining close ties with the United States, he skillfully exploited Cold War dynamics to his advantage, presenting himself as a staunch anti-communist in a region increasingly influenced by leftist movements. This stance allowed him to secure aid and investment while avoiding significant external interference in his domestic affairs. However, his aggressive and often unpredictable foreign policy, such as his territorial ambitions regarding Haiti and the Dominican Republic's role in regional conflicts, occasionally strained international relations and exposed the vulnerability of small states under authoritarian rule. Repression and human rights abuses. The hallmark of Trujillo's regime was the extreme repression and systematic violation of human rights. Political opponents, journalists, and ordinary citizens perceived as threats were subjected to imprisonment, torture, or execution. The regime maintained a network of secret police and informants, creating a pervasive climate of fear. Massacres, such as the 1937 Parsley Massacre, and targeted assassinations of political dissidents underscored the lengths to which Trujillo would go to maintain his grip on power. Even members of his own family and inner circle were not immune to punishment if they were perceived as disloyal. Trujillo also exercised strict control over civil society, limiting freedom of expression, assembly, and the press. Independent institutions were dismantled or co-opted, ensuring that the state dominated every aspect of public life. Education and propaganda reinforced the image of Trujillo as indispensable to the nation, while also suppressing alternative political ideas and dissenting voices. Assassination and legacy. Trujillo's rule came to a violent end on May 30, 1961, when a group of conspirators ambushed and assassinated him in a carefully orchestrated operation. His death marked the beginning of a turbulent transition for the Dominican Republic. In the immediate aftermath, political instability and social unrest emerged as factions vied for power, revealing the degree to which the country had become dependent on Trujillo's authoritarian control. The legacy of Trujillo's rule is complex. On one hand, he modernized the Dominican economy and infrastructure, which provided a foundation for future development. On the other hand, his reign left deep social scars, a culture of fear, institutional corruption, human rights violations, and political polarization persisted long after his death. Trujillo's dictatorship also serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of concentrated power, the vulnerability of democratic institutions, and the human cost of authoritarianism. Conclusion. Rafael Trujillo remains an emblematic figure in the study of 20th-century authoritarianism. His ability to combine personal charisma, ruthless repression, economic development, and nationalist propaganda allowed him to dominate the Dominican Republic for over 30 years. While his regime achieved certain developmental goals, these came at a staggering human cost. Trujillo's rule exemplifies how authoritarian leaders can manipulate state structures and society to consolidate power, leaving a legacy that is as instructive as it is tragic. Understanding his reign provides crucial insights into the mechanisms of dictatorship, the fragility of democratic institutions, and the enduring impact of political terror on national identity and social cohesion. In summary, Rafael Trujillo's dictatorship was defined by extreme repression, a pervasive cult of personality, and a paradoxical combination of modernization and terror. His tenure demonstrates the dangerous potential of unchecked political power and serves as a historical reminder of the human consequences of authoritarian rule. The Dominican Republic's post-Trujillo trajectory continues to grapple with the social, political, and economic consequences of his decades-long rule, making the study of his dictatorship essential for understanding both the history and the enduring challenges of governance in the Caribbean region.